morning this week is known as Good Shepherd Sunday. And because of that, the texts that are chosen are all references to shepherds. One of these is the familiar Psalm 23, a psalm often closely associated with funeral services and comfort for the family during the time of loss. Let me begin by sharing the words to you of this psalm. You are my shepherd. I am content. You lead me to rest in the sweet grasses, to lie down by the quiet waters, and I am refreshed. You lead me down the right path, the path that unwinds in the pattern of your name. And even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you are with me, comforting me with your rod and your staff, showing me each step. You prepare a table for me in the midst of my adversaries and moisten my head with oil. Surely my cup is overflowing, and goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life. In the long days beyond, I will always live within your house. You may not have heard some of these lines before when you've heard the 23rd Psalm. I found this version by author Norman Fisher from his book of Psalm translations called Opening to You. I found this version really resonated with me this past week. I was struck especially with the line that says, the path that unwinds in the pattern of your name. In place of the more familiar, he leads me in right paths for his name's sake. For me, there's something about this unfolding pattern of footsteps that says to me that there is a path that unwinds before us and not to crave something else. Even in the face of adversity, there is a table set for us. Psalm 23 is also very personal. There are no references to we or us or they, but only my and me and I and you. David, a shepherd boy, the author of this psalm, shares these words as his own personal testimony, his own personal experience with God. And yes, these words are precious words to share with a wounded soul during a celebration of life. But beyond that, I see these words as a constant friend that covers all of life. With simple beauty, it speaks of green pastures and still waters, as well as dark valleys and enemies and adversaries. It can provide comfort for everyday living. What comforts us and helps us is the Psalm's confidence. David really believes this about God. What David writes are not poetic exaggerations or some sort of theological statement. David has experienced God in these ways throughout his life. David has heard God's voice, followed God's lead, and felt truly cared for by God. I read this and I think, David gets it. Life is hard and sometimes scary. It is the human condition to find ourselves walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And sometimes this has to do with our mortality, grieving a death, facing an upcoming surgery or cancer treatment. Sometimes it's just a season of disruption. I don't know, like maybe living through a worldwide pandemic. In the Hebrew language, this valley of the shadow of death can refer to death and grief, but also fear, uncertainty, and the lack of control. We aren't completely sure where we are going. We are in the dark, and that makes us mad, anxious, and afraid. Here's the crazy thing too. Just because there's a pandemic going on, it doesn't mean all our other concerns go away, right? In fact, the heightened anxiety we have due to the virus actually decreases our capacity to make good decisions about all of it. Relationships, our faith, our health, our addictions, etc., etc. I mean, it's easy to criticize the people who were buying up toilet paper like it was going out of style at the beginning of all this. But the truth is that we're all doing the best we can. When we are anxious, it's hard to think clearly and act rationally. One of our biggest challenges these days is to find the means to help lower the anxiety levels of those in our lives, of our own anxiety. Because the lower the anxiety, the higher theirs and our capacity to face challenges and changes. So what do we do when we are anxious and needing support? Well, we turn to our Good Shepherd. Because as the psalm says, even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear. For you are with me. God is like a shepherd. In fact, God is my shepherd, our shepherd. God says, and because of that, we lack nothing. We fear not. We are never alone. The faithfulness of God is the source of our hope, confidence, and our strength. Psalm 23 really does depict a journey through all of life. And the song celebrates the fact that God is with the pilgrim on this journey. The pilgrim lies down in green pastures for rest, is led by waters and guided in right paths, even through dark valleys. The journey continues with God accompanying the pilgrim, or more literally, and goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life. Since goodness and kindness are God's concern for us, therefore the meaning is that God is present, aiming to catch up with us at some point. Perhaps it's a bit like the African proverb in which the elder indicates to one passing by and inquiring of the resting pilgrim's health. I'm fine, the elder says. I'm just waiting for my spirit to catch up to my body. Our spirits pursue our bodies, which necessitates our bodies stopping from time to time to let our spirits catch up. Perhaps Psalm 23 is an invitation for goodness and kindness to catch up and accompany us the rest of the way. The other thing about Psalm 23 is that it's both personal and communal. We are the accompanied through dark times, but that justice calls us into relationships of wholeness. It also reflects with the divine, our intimacy with the divine. God accompanies us, that is me and you, in a real and tangible way. There is a vulnerability by which we are called to live in the world, to live and eat in sight of our enemies. But even there is God is with us. We are not alone. And Psalm 23 then becomes our invitation to accompany those who feel lost or in total darkness, who seek new direction, who cannot find and feel God's presence. There are no rational answers to these times of distress, but rather accompaniment and presence. In fact, our presence is far more powerful at times than our words. We cannot explain ourselves or our friends out of the dark valleys, but we can accompany them in and out, guiding sometimes with a staff and a rod, but always there, as a symbol and sign that God too is always there. My prayer is that you can take comfort in this psalm this week, as I have. God shepherds you. God knows your needs and fears. God is with you in the darkest valleys, and no matter what is going on around you, you are held in the presence of God and will dwell in the house of the Good Shepherd forever. Amen.